Welcome back, episode 60 of the Ground Up podcast. Conspiracy start, let's fucking dive in. Elon Musk and Donald Trump have had a bit of a paddy.
I think we predicted it. You can't have two bulls in the ring.
You've got the richest person in the world and you've got the most powerful politician having it out on X. Great marketing for X, right?
I just feel that all of their politics is Hollywood. It's almost like all a show.
Now, let's get to Sam Cooke. The world is changing in such a way that publishing is dying. Gave you the nerve to think, I will make this work.
I'd like to say there was some grand plan at the start. I really don't think there was. It was just try and get it to a stable level. I think as I've grown as a person, Bluebricks has grown, and now what it's about is ethics, integrity, and being a voice in the industry that showcases honesty.
All the people you've interviewed, what kind of makes them successful, would you say?
Common denominator is people that have got a ridiculous amount of drive, but people that can go through a ridiculous amount of pain.
There's not a single other public place where anyone that's closing a fund would talk that much in detail about how it's structured. So it took me all of those meetings to understand how those things are structured and what's a good deal. And you guys have just heard it here without having to leave your comfort of your own home.
Ground up sound, ooh, yeah. Real estate deals. We lay them down, let's get those deals. Deals, deals, making money, baby.
Welcome back, episode 60 of the Ground Up podcast. In this episode, we're going to be touching on, obviously, the new feud of America, Elon Musk versus Donald Trump. Don't know what's gone on. They've had a breakup overnight. This has literally just happened as of about 12 hours ago. Jousting online. Seems a little bit petty, a little bit extreme, a little bit disappointing. Don't really know what's going on, so we're going to touch on that a bit. We also have a great guest with us today as well, Sam Cooke, who is the founder. Just seen Dorian go like.
And then when he said Sam, I went, oh. Right.
Sam Cooke, founder of Bluebricks magazine. Well, I say founder, and we'll let him give us a proper description. But I know he took on this magazine and has made it into a great success. Bluebricks magazine is really top magazine in the property space in the UK. Really credible guests and editors and stuff that they have on there. So we'll hash into all of that. Jack was in one of the last issues. Well done, Jack. And then if you're new to the podcast, there are us four boys. You've got Jack Jiggins, Stuart Wyeth, and Dorian Payne, and myself, Ryan Beaumont. We're four property developers from the UK. We run property development businesses. We employ a lot of staff. We do hundreds of millions of pounds in property development projects. And we try and offer as much free value as we can every week. So make sure you subscribe. Do that as the first thing. If you're new to this podcast, please just subscribe and share this episode with anyone who you think may find it useful. Cool. Big love. Enjoy the episode. Let's crack on. Quickly though, boys, how's the week been? D, you've had a bit of a...
Yeah, keeping it concise then, so I'll just stick with the one. So as you all know, I've mentioned several times, but for the past 7 months, I think I've been working on this deal with a social impact fund. And as you all know, scaling a business, look at the map behind me, trying to conquer the UK, been always trying to raise a large amount of capital, large funding line, etc., etc., etc. And so out of literally hundreds of leads, managed to find one firm that was happy to get into the detail. They're social impact funds who really love what we're doing, and they're looking to do something innovative as well. And this was the end of last year's, before Christmas last year. And finally, it's taken 7 months. They've had internal approval and approval from the fund, which they're receiving the money from, because obviously they're a fund, they manage money. So the mandate's got approved, which is great. So we officially finalized head to terms yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? And legals got instructed. And I know normally we say legals got instructed feels like the start of the journey. But in this case, it feels like we're getting close to the end of the journey. And we've got a flow of deals ready to go. It's really exciting. It's a up to the JV is this JV is 20 to 25 million, and but really behind that the social impact fund, which hopefully is going to be in the news in the next 6 weeks when we close, They've got 800 million under management, I think. So, and they're looking to scale as well. So the opportunity, they basically saying capital won't be an issue. It's just delivery. Which, as long as we deliver, they're confident that they can fill the mandate. So for us, it's game changing. What will work very quickly, just to how it's structured, is we're the delivery partner, so we're finding all the opportunities and still the forefront with the client, etc. We now get our entire pipeline funded, and we also our construction company is going to be running all of that pipeline under kind of like pre-construction service agreements and incurring all the costs and dealing with it and getting charged. We get to charge a 15% OHP. And when we get into contract with the client, we'll do all the build and we'll also charge a 15% OHP. We also get a development management fee along the side and a finance fee along the side. And we then get a profit split as well, which is 60-40 in their favor. But overall, as a business, that means that what we was cash negative all the way in through to we get into build, which can take 2.5 years, is now flipped into cash positive, and we can also do larger deals. So the deal that we've sent over to them now, which we would never be, we just wouldn't be able to play in that arena yet. It's between 100 and 150 units, and for them, they're like, yeah, great. They're all about deployment and social impact, and let's make the maximum. So really exciting, guys. I'll just fingers crossed legals go smooth, and when it goes over the line, we are going to party
And
on
you know,
John's expense.
Well done, mate.
on his boat in Henley.
do you know what's cool though, mate, is obviously we've if anyone who's listening as well has watched this podcast for at least the last 6 months, has seen you kind of like describe this story as it naturally evolves. So it's quite cool to see. Maybe we should do a little clip of like you explaining it at different stages, and now you're at the last hurdle.
I would also say there is not a single other public place where anyone that's closing a fund would talk that much in detail about how it's structured. So I mean, just goes to show the value of the pod, really, because I've been in the similar sort of rooms as Dorian, and I actually think he's got one of the better deals that I've ever heard of from supporting an SME funding development company, which you wouldn't get if it was private stuff. But it took me all of those meetings, over 100 meetings, to understand how those things are structured and what's a good deal. And you guys have just heard it here without having to leave the comfort of your own home.
Quality, mate. Kudos, D. Kudos. How about you there, Jack? How's your week been?
We exchanged on a little property in Central Suite, subject to planning. Got 3 investor meetings today in the city, which is exciting. My new land guy started yesterday, so I'm pretty excited. He's come from actually a developer come land trader, and I'm excited to sort of see what he brings to the table. He's much more land led. Obviously, a lot of the stuff that we've been buying is existing buildings and repurposing them, but it's been it's been something in the back of my mind that I've always wanted to move more into land and take sites through planning. We've obviously got the surveying and the architectural stuff on tap, so I think we can be quite competitive and also create a lot more margin in that space and potentially trade more sites on and deliver some from ground up. Big shout out ground up. And had a really awesome day this week where I went to see the Dagenham Green site, which the Hill Group are developing out in Dagenham, which is 970 units in London with a TDC, which was amazing. Absolutely loved it. It was mental site. It's just next level. I mean, I've never seen so much concrete being set, and all of that stuff is quite alien to me because I just build individual houses at one at a time, loads of timber, and you go to that completely different end of scale, and it's absolutely crazy. The old site was actually bought by Peabody, the housing association, and then Peabody tendered out to JV with a developer. The site was actually originally a mass Ford production site, so Ford Motor Company owned it. They produced 11 million cars in that plant over the course of about 70 years. And then obviously a land promoter took it on, got an option on the contract, got planning for 970 units. Peabody then bought the site. It was going to be a flagship social housing site, affordable site that they were delivering out. And then the Hill Group, who's obviously a privately owned development company, landed the JV. So yeah, went to have a look at them getting their third tower out the ground, 18 stories, absolute 45 acre site in sort of very close to London is absolutely nuts.
Would you say they're spending £1 million a day or something?
Yeah, so they're doing infrastructure and tower building at the moment, and so they were talking through their funding because they have a they have a facility with a lender. Their drawdowns are about 5 million a week at the moment.
Mad. Different gravy.
I can imagine. So, but useful things for I suppose for the listeners is obviously we're actually accompanied and walked around by the Hill Group's son. So, one of the executive directors of the company who's apparently grown up through the ranks and has a really, really, really good handle on the business, where its weaknesses are, where its strengths are, what they're good at, what they're bad at, whether, and all of these types of things. So just to sort of go through some, interesting, I suppose, items that you can take away. So I asked the question, what have been your challenges in the scale and growth that you've been growing? So this business is still immediate generation running. So it's still the founder is still alive and running it. So I like to ask questions about those businesses because they're delivering 10,000 units as we speak. And that started from one person setting up the business. And interestingly, the son said, when they set out the business, it was easier to grow a development business. It was way easier to do what we're doing. And that has enabled them to get to where they are today. They wouldn't be able to redo it again if they started today without the experience. Obviously, if they went into a world with the same knowledge and contacts, they would have a huge head start. So that's one important thing to note, that we are in a different environment. He said initially their limitations was cash. And then he said it literally turned overnight. They were constantly cash strapped, highly leveraged, doing whatever they need to do. The founder leveraged his own house up to do his first deal. And then there was a turning point where you reach sort of maturity, or the inertia period is broken off. And then cash is the opposite problem. And then he said, then the problem is people, and getting the right people and bums on seats and scaling the right team. And he said, now planning trumps people and cash, whatever you're doing. He said the nuances of getting planning through is a huge difficulty. Out of the 10,000 units they're delivering on site, they've got 900 employees. They do develop themselves, but they actually contract manage. So they bring in all the trades themselves, but they are actually a contractor. They aim to make about 10% margin on their construction. They're building out new build resi flats out of the ground in Dagenham at 2,800 a meter squared, which I think is really cheap, and 2,500 per meter for houses, for residential townhouse family houses. Out of their 900 staff, 100 of their staff are in sales.
Mad.
Is it a third, and third, you saying?
Oh yeah, so on that particular site, yeah, they're on that JV. A third they've forward sold as a build to rent block, 3 blocks. A third is private resi sales, which they're selling on the open market. They still do a lot of sales internationally, so Singapore is their hotspot for selling, and their team actually go out there and sell it. And the other third is the obviously Peabody's allocated affordable housing.
Is that how they said they turned from being cash strapped kind of typical developer into cash not being the problem? Was it through through joint ventures and more sophisticated funding lines? And
they said that they take on private jobs as contractors for clients, and they said they would have never have got to where they are today without that cash flow, because it's the cash flow that kept the lights on when you're doing a big site or a development. That they said that's imperative. They said they wouldn't be able to run a development company without having the construction feeding in cash flow on other people's projects during that duration. But it's it's a difficult space. They must know. I mean, they're super organized, and you can tell that they're everything's dialed down really well. I'd say they're a little bit old school, in the sense that I think there's a bit of an opportunity for the likes of us with AI and being on tech and integrating systems a little bit better. And and he said their design director, who's just stepped away, so he's probably been there for several decades, didn't have a computer or a laptop. He just drew things with a pen, and I was like, fucking hell! Like, it just goes to show that, the change in. And I think that's a huge opportunity. Obviously, they can throw money at it and bring the right people in, but it's going to take a bit of time to get the right technology and systems brought into business where we're all used to it.
Nice. Sounds like a good experience. And Stu, you went, didn't you?
I was invited to go, but unfortunately I had like 3 key people off this week, so it's been mental just trying to stay afloat. It's amazing when people go away how much work they actually do and how much they relied on. But yeah, no, it sounds amazing. Gutted I couldn't go. It does sound like SW Homes just 10 years later though. They're feeding construction into the big development site. Yeah, right. I'd never want to run that size business. Yeah, it's been all right, man. It's been good. Yeah, it's been busy. The bank's had 4 people we've had 4 people go ahead with 4 flats over the bank. We've signed a couple of leases now. Moving ahead with Windsor. I had a customer ring us last Friday, which I'll send the video in so you guys can watch it because I recorded him. He's basically had a builder go on his site, rip the whole of his roof off. He's paid 18 grand. They've done it to the neighbour and then fucked off, and they've given him a dodgy invoice. The guy's played cricket with this guy for 20 years. So he's like basically been like hoodwinking him all the way through. Well, I don't know their relationship or not, but he's turned up, ripped their roof off. He stuck acro props everyone on the first floor, and then just disappeared. And the address he gave him was moody. The name was moody. He can't find him for love nor money. He's obviously got his neighbour to go ahead as well. And yeah, I got it all on video. So I gave him a price that afternoon and said to him, look, you need to get this sorted because you're gonna have some major issues. And yeah, we're pushing on with that one this week. So trying to capture a lot of that on video just to use for social media about what to look for in bad contractors. So I think we should definitely do a piece on that in a future episode. But yeah, no, it's been good. It's just busy, man. We've exploded. The lofts have gone mental, which does sort of indicate to me that there's a lot more money going to be sloshing around in the next few months. So yeah, we keep fighting. We're booking up to almost the end of the year now, booking in for New Year. So
Quality. Well done, Stu. I'll keep mine brief. Standard week. Keep flying through. We've had a guy over from Malaga, a guy we're employing on the sort of sales side of the business, or investment advisor, and he's been doing just a deep dive week with us, showing him around everywhere, doing bits and bobs like that, just genning him up, and everything else moving like we would hope it should move. Good. We're building a whole new acquisitions pipeline. For the bigger sites now and just pulling the last bits of that together, but it's way more streamlined. So it means finding stuff like, old sports bars, churches or whatever, offices. It means we've got a pretty slick appraisal process now between myself and the 2 non-execs we've brought in who are architects and an ex-principal contractor. Between us, we can now very quickly appraise a site and see if it's worth moving forward to the next stage, which is good because we needed to build up that part of the pipeline. Other than that, interesting, Jack mentioned AI software and integrations, because it may just be, possibly, not entirely sure yet, maybe I should be careful of my time, might be looking to grow and scale an IT software solutions and integration company. Maybe, possibly. An opportunity has presented itself. And I'm like, okay, that could be cool. I've got the guy who's the wizard, the wizard tech guy, and he's very interested in having a commercial partner, someone who can sell, market, help sort of build the back end. And I think there might be something interesting there, but we'll see. I do need to be careful of distractions and things like that, but we're using him internally to flush out our business. And from what I've seen him do so far for us, I'm like, fucking hell, it's like having a wizard just come in and just create whatever you want to create, slick up whatever system you want, integrate whatever AI you want. And basically it's kind of like construction is an easy analogy. It's you can build anything. It's just how much does it cost? And he leverages a lot of AI to bring down that cost, like quite a lot. And it's just blown my mind and gone, fucking hell, every company could be so different if you can just implement a guy like this, who can then just go in and fix everything up. Blah, 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 blah. There's your new system. Here's a retainer for looking after that system long term. And I'm like, there's loads of business owners that would want to do that in this modern age. So maybe there's something there. I don't know.
Have you looked at Replit?
No, but I've heard of that. But
yeah, go. Shameless plug. Go and watch XP's last Friday. Ben's basically Replit is run by an AI guy that does basically web development, but he's built a product where you verbally qualitatively I've done a Stu there analysis, you qualitatively talk to a ChatGPT and say, this is my company, this is my interface, I want to build a back-end platform where I could do X, Y, and Z and build platforms. And then it goes out and codes it for you, and you speak to and from it, so it codes it all for you. And it codes in every language. You could do back-end, front-end systems, processes. You could build your own CRM system. You could build your own project management tool like Monday.com, Asana. You can then integrate it into your own website. You can build billing platforms. You can build finance modules. You can build literally anything. And I was like, yeah, it all sounds good, but how accurate and good is it going to be? Ben's been working on it to build. So in XP Surveys, we're building. Obviously, we've got our own customer interface website, which is our online quotation tool. We're building a customer portal so they can, so architects can log in and see all of their jobs under a portal, and we upload them, etc. We're building a platform for third-party one-man band surveyors to win work. So they bid for work. So it's almost like a lead generation business for them. So all they do is just go, I'll take that job, deliver it, I'll produce the drawings. And then we've got our own internal processes, so we can pull everything off HubSpot, Asana, and all of the systems that we use and build it in one. So basically, our website becomes us. That's it. And it's nuts. It's so powerful. And the guy that set it up was on Diary of the CEO with Daniel Priestley, and like they did like a chat about AI. Super interesting stuff.
Wow, what's that company called? Spell it out.
REPLIT, I think.
Replit. Yeah, cool. I'll have a look at that, mate. Sweet.
It sounds almost, there's crossover there. So
Yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely. I mean, to give you an idea, some of the things I've got him doing is looking at like, he has to code in ways of connecting, say, online platforms where we might be scraping a load of data, where he then has to build in a load of manual overrides so that
they'll do all of that. It's nuts. Yeah, I'll ping the episode so you can have a look.
All right, cool. Now let's get to Sam Cooke. Hello, Sam. Sam.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing?
Good
All
morning.
good, thank you, sir. All good morning. So yeah, Sam runs Blue Bricks magazine. So I won't introduce for yourself, Sam. Give us an introduction. Tell us, a quick sort of one-liner, one paragraph, what it is you do, and how you started doing it.
Yeah, so Blue Bricks is a property investment magazine. We're a magazine for investors and developers. If I had to sort of sum up what we do in a short paragraph, I'd say the magazine contains anything that helps you either save or make more money in property. I'm not the founder of Blue Bricks, as you sort of alluded to earlier. I bought Blue Bricks magazine, the business, 3 years ago after working on it for some time, and then after working for a private equity firm for a short while that was buying and selling businesses.
Nice. And could you give us some high-level stats just to give our audience an idea on, number of readers, revenue, stuff like that?
Yeah, so we're at 10,000 readers currently. We're on track this year to do 200 to 250,000 turnover. To give you an idea, 3 years ago when I bought the business, it was unprofitable because we had a lot of debt upon purchase. What other stats are there? There's now 3 members of staff as well. And we do events UK-wide. The readership is a national readership all the way up from Newcastle to London, and strangely a couple of people in sort of Ireland as well.
And why a magazine? Why did you look at that and go, do you know what? I'm going to take that on as a business model.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. I think stupidity, to be honest with you. I was young and the idea of buying a business seemed like a great idea. I'd worked for the magazine. I loved the magazine. I loved what it was about. I've always loved property. I didn't realise how tricky it would be trying to scale a publishing business in a digital age, but it's been a learning curve.
And how would you say 10,000, because in this day and age, someone says I've got 10,000 readers or 10,000 listeners, and it's like, yeah, well, the internet, you can get hundreds of thousands, you can get millions, but it's different, isn't it? Having 10,000 people buy into a magazine. How would you sort of compare 10,000 readers of a magazine to say 10,000 views on YouTube?
Yeah, that's good. A good question. So first of all, the types of people reading a property magazine are obviously going to be interested in property, and the content that we provide, which is for experienced investors, not new people, means if they're reading it, they're obviously doing stuff in property. Whereas with a YouTube video, any Tom, Dick and Harry can, be watching that. I was watching property videos when I was sort of 18, 19, just sort of getting an idea into the world of it. So I think it's the pre-qualification. And I sound biased, but there's something about print. There's something about physically holding something, touching something, feeling something, as opposed to just scrolling on your phone, on your sofa.
No, I agree with that, mate. Especially, you're in the barber shop, or if you're just sort of monging around, or you don't want to get on your phone all day, you're on holiday, nice little magazine with you. Why not? All right. Well, do you want to talk about the feud between Elon Musk and Donald Trump before we dive into the business details?
Me personally, mate, I don't have much to say on this, but I have to say, I think it's bollocks. I don't think they're actually arguing.
Do you not think? Okay, cool. Right. Conspiracy start. Let's fucking dive in. Let's go. Just as well, just before we do that, just for all the listeners' sake, I'm bringing up on screen just a shot of the front cover of Blue Brick magazine, just so you've got an idea of what the product looks like. Right, so we'll just dive into this quick because I know Jack will go soon. So we'll just get this out of the way first. So Elon Musk and Donald Trump have had a bit of a paddy, a bit of a playground fallout, it feels like. But it's serious. It's about serious shit. Stuff that's quite contentious and can't really change. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. There's this big, beautiful bill that's being pushed through in America, mostly because of Congress, and it's looking like it's going to increase government spending by about 1.6 trillion. And there's all kinds of other economic fallout off the back of that. Obviously, Elon went into the government with Doge, Department of Government Efficiency, to try and reduce spending, to try and save the fiscal status of the economy in America. And then there's this big, beautiful bill that's kind of sideswiped the American people, and it's like, well, hang on. What are we doing here? Like, we wanted change, we wanted efficiency, we wanted less spending. And I do think there's a two-sided thing here, because Trump's trying to have a practical solution and has to spend money to enact the things he's trying to do, like the Iron Dome, the military changes, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, they can't keep spending into oblivion. And I think that's where Elon kind of fell off the rails. And over the last few days, he's been very vocal against the big, beautiful bill. And then he came out with this yesterday, because I think the Trump administration was then pushing back against Elon. And then Elon said, time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, Donald J. Trump. And then he quote retweeted himself and said, mark this post for the future. The truth will come out. And then I think Trump retaliated and said, the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's government subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it. Elon then responded with, in light of the president's statement about cancellation of my government contracts, SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately. And if you don't know what that is, that's basically the vehicle that gets astronauts to and from the International Space Station, and is basically the only one available to America. So that's not good news. But they also have come out since and said, obviously, we're not going to do that. It's just a bit of, jousting online. And also, Donald Trump's tweet doesn't exist anymore, whether it's been deleted or not. Not too sure. But it's all a bit childish. And then Elon said, the Trump tariffs will cause a recession in the second half of this year. Now, that is interesting. Is that a flippant comment, or is that actually what he thinks? Because these tariffs are a big kind of like gamble at the moment. Will they work? Will they bring back financial stability to the American economy and create the new geopolitical landscape that the Trump administration is trying to manufacture? And then Elon tweeted, is it time to create a new political party in America that actually represents the 80% in the middle? It's had over 4.5 million votes overnight, with 81% of people saying yes. That's the state of play. Lads, what are we saying? Anyone got any thoughts on this?
Oh, it's crazy.
You've got the richest person in the world, and you've got the most powerful politician having it out on X. Great marketing for X, right?
I think we predicted it. I'm sure when it first started, the bromance started brewing on one of the old episodes, we said that it's gonna blow up because they're two extremely strong personalities and characters, and you can't have two bulls in the ring. One of them is gonna fucking end up headbutting the other.
It's annoying how that has panned out, because a lot of people did say that, and the Democrats especially were saying that. They're like, this relationship's not going to last, and it was just this hope of like, they'll make it last. They'll make sure it does, and it hasn't. But it's worth noting that the core issue stems from congressional decision making, not necessarily Trump. Trump is being practical. Elon's being principled. That the principle is, we came into power, or Republicans came into power to stop spending stupid amounts of money to save the financial crisis that America's in with this debt spiral, the same crisis we have in the UK. And then with this big, beautiful bill, it kind of just goes against all of that. But Trump knows he has to appease Congress.
Beautiful bill. I think the only thing I just picking up on back of Sam's comment, really, because nobody really knows the true state of play. I personally think that it's real from kind of Elon's side, from Donald Trump's side. Just from, obviously, I've never met the guy, I don't know him, but from the books I've read about him, if any of you have read his book, like The Art of the Deal, he openly says in there that his tactics for getting certain things is by throwing, kind of causing chaos and throwing diversions and, and causing, you starting from extreme points and ending up with what he wants eventually, which comes across as reasonable and rational. Uh, that's just the way Donald Trump is, like, from the books I've read. So that's why everything he's connected to kind of blows up, and then something comes out which he finally turns around and is like, "Yeah, but this is what we really wanted," you know. But you can't see it at the beginning, so be interesting to see what happens. Yeah.
Sam, what do you think, mate? Any opinions? You said you don't think it's real.
Yeah, I was doing some reading on this in the morning, and there's a lot of sort of conspiracies that are saying that Elon's doing this to try and win the people back and get his Tesla stocks up. So obviously there's been a lot of problems caused with that over in America. So I don't know how true it is, but it just seems a bit too public and a bit too soon to be real, in my opinion.
It's madness. I mean, it's a bit of an interesting strategy, as it's just dropped 16% overnight. But I mean, it's a good time to buy if you're buying Tesla. I just think Elon was probably embarrassed that he's put his brand and his personality on the line to try and save money. But the inevitability was they have to print money. It's almost certain to pay off the previous debt. And I think he was embarrassed that bill went through overnight. No one at Congress saw it. It got through. They were going to print another $1.5 billion, another $1.5 trillion or something. It's just crazy money. So I just think it's an embarrassment for Elon, or he's playing the perfect political game to try and set his own party up.
Track record, which is the only thing, is like he's always been principled, right? He's done mental things like buying Twitter, like on principle rather than on financial interests. So I don't see it being financially driven. I think it's but I do. He has done stupid things online before, like tweeted things that he just should. I don't think he should have tweeted the Epstein thing. I don't see how that advantages him in any way or anyone. That's just like, that's kind of like playground antics. Whereas questioning the bill and standing firm on that out of principle, I think that's what the people wanted. That's why they put Trump in. It's the same thing we want here in the UK, innit? We don't want to keep fucking growing our debt and having to keep printing money and creating inflation.
That's where politics comes in, though, isn't it? Because Elon acts out of his principles. So, you know, he has some good principles and equally some not some good principles. Again, just from, you know, he's not perfect. No one is. But that's where politics comes in, because whilst I'm just playing devil's advocate, obviously we have a set of information that we see that's public. You know, America is obviously in terms of the world, if not up there in the top 3 power states, power nations of the world. So the data they have is stuff that we'll never see. And when I always think about this, I'm like, well, if you look at some of where the money's going in terms of extra defense and stuff, uh, you know, there probably are real risks that needs spending. And Stuart's right. I mean, I think Elon was just naive. That I definitely, you know, cutting waste is extremely important. But the way the world's gone, you fucking can't come back from some of the play. You're in the, we're in the crater, really.
The Epstein thing's probably true. I mean, if you look at, he's a red-hot blooded animal who's got all the power and money, and he's in, the Epstein thing is probably a true thing, that Elon's gone, fuck you, you can't give me enough money or power to, I stand on my principles.
Or what? Why would Trump want to bring it out in the first place?
Well, because he's doing what his negotiation is. He's trying to bluff everyone.
He did it for his trial. He did it for his campaign, wasn't he, to get in, because Biden wasn't releasing. And then when he got in, he released information that was already there and just left a bit. I think he's in it.
I mean, he was grabbing pussy. He was a different character 4 years ago. Pussy grabbing,
Phrase.
president.
Oh my god.
Pussy grabber.
Moving on. I mean, what I find
They
really
don't talk like that in Henley, Stuart.
No.
yeah, I mean, goodness gracious, get out of this establishment, you barbed prigs. What I find interesting is obviously our political process and system is obviously like quite, like old Victorian in terms of like very, very old school with House of Lords and bills going through. And America is, I would say, very Hollywood. Fame actually fortunes you in the politics world. Arnold Schwarzenegger becoming a governor of a state, like it's just an example of the popular people go into politics. And I've always said obviously I'm married into American family. I always say I just feel that all of their politics is Hollywood. It's almost like all a show. And about 6 months ago, we talked about Elon coming in and helping Trump, and we were saying it's great, someone commercially minded, someone that's run their own business, and this is the backlash of that. This is the potential downside of someone that's reported to no one and doesn't report to anyone, then having an issue with the person in control, and then you get this clash where the most powerful person in politics is dealing with the most powerful person in, you know, in almost every other capacity, I would say. So I think it's a good example and flavor of like, uh, I actually love commercials in politics. I think there should be more of it, but it's an example. If you bring in powerhouses from the commercial world that don't report to anyone, you can have a backlash of how fucked up all politics is. I mean, all politics is I think if we were doing in business what they do in politics, we'd be in jail. So I think that we should be pushing more of that, what they're up to. And Elon, whatever he's doing, whatever backlash they're having, however pathetic it is, I like it. It's pulling a curtain back on how fucked up that part of the world is for everyone. We're being ran by people who we don't trust or can't trust just because they're better than the other candidate running.
The principle is clear as day. The people voted for government efficiency and less spending and getting a hold of the fiscal situation of the United States. And that bill just principally goes against all of that. And that's where Elon's gone, well, what the fuck's the point of democracy? Like, if the people wanted this thing and now you're just doing the complete opposite, that's kind of like Labour have done in the UK. It's like, well, what's the point? What's the whole point in all you lot being politicians if you don't do what we want in a democracy?
Quick exit. I've got to dive off. Got some meetings in the city. Just wanted to say thanks, Sam, for coming on. I know Sam personally, and I've known him for a few years. And I'd like to say to anyone out there listening, he's a really good guy, and he's got honest approaches in the magazine, and has a lot of respect and time for everyone. So I'll leave you in his hands to learn a little bit more about him. But I'll dive off now.
Cheers,
Thanks,
Jack.
Jack.
Yeah, Jay.
You both. Following from Jack's, what he just said then, that looking forward to get into the blue bricks and the behind the scenes of Sam. But as you probably know, Sam, if you have listened to this podcast, Ryan does love a political rabbit hole. So we are still very much down there in a second. So carry on, Ryan.
Every now and then, look, I try not to bring it up too much, but this is an interesting one. But I'll end it on this last point. That obviously in the UK we've got Labour and the Tories, and now we have Reform, this new thing. Where, by the way, Zia Youssef, the chairman of Reform, has just resigned publicly, so that's not looking great. Don't know what's happening there. But we have this new party, this third party to battle the incumbents, and maybe that's what Elon's going to look to do in America, because they've got the Dems and the Republicans, and maybe there's a third party required. And if we're seeing that sort of as a trend line across the Western world, that could be a positive, interesting, challenging change.
Maybe that was the plan all along.
Maybe. But yeah, all right, we'll dive into Sam. Just thought we had to touch on that today. So, Sam,
Well, I can ask a couple of questions because I don't know too much about Blue Bricks. Obviously, I've seen them on social media. So I just really wanted to like start from the beginning, really. So like basically leaving school, childhood, through to how you got to here. So what was you doing prior to the magazine, really? Like you was an estate agent, wasn't you?
Yeah, I was. So I never went to university or anything like that. I jumped straight into an apprenticeship when I was 16 years old, basically. And then from there, I jumped into the corporate world and learned very, very quickly. It just wasn't for me, and this just wasn't what I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing. You know, you sort of around people that have been there 20, 30 years that are looking you in the eyes and going, make sure you leave, don't do what I did. It's very depressing sort of world. Yeah.
What was you doing in corporate?
I was doing, originally it was like debt recovery for a building society, which was fucking really not fun at all, mate. I went against my morals, so I didn't manage long at that. And then I went into e-learning of all things, and I sort of, around about 18, I started realizing, no, I want more from life. I want to do more. I watched a film, Wolf of Wall Street, for some reason, just massively inspired me to realize there's more out there. And then I started researching property. I went to the bloody one-day seminars, and I think like everyone does. And I didn't pay any money, but I just went to them. I saw through the sort of hard sales. And then I thought, well, how do I get into property? And estate agency seemed like a logical step. So that's what I ended up doing, really. And then from estate agency, I ended up sourcing during lockdown.
Obviously, publishing's quite a jump, you know. I'm just interested to see your journey up to the point of which you decided to buy the magazine, really. Just get a bit of a update and bit of background about you, really.
Was an estate agent, lost my job during COVID, went into property sourcing. I'm giving the quick version, and was basically, ASA was property sourcing in COVID, because when COVID happened, in my head, it was a great idea to open a sourcing business because it was like 3 weeks, we'll flatten the curve, and then we're all sorted. Obviously, that didn't happen. So as I was trying to navigate that and grow a sourcing business in, the COVID, investors were uncertain, vendors were uncertain. Um, I was approached by Blue Bricks Magazine. I was connected with them, and they said, "Would you like to come and work for us 25 hours a week? We'll give you, you know, income," which I was like, "Great, that means I've got guaranteed income every month while I grow my business. We'll connect you with investors and you can come work from our office." Now, before that point, I'd never been around entrepreneurs or business owners or anything like that. So I was really excited to actually be around people I could learn from. And then when I started working from that office, I realized that Blue Bricks was part owned by a private equity firm who I was sharing the office with. And I kind of got integrated into that business, to be honest with you. I just became fascinated with their world, what they did, how they did it, was learning from the founder of that firm, became very close friends with him. So I was still growing Blue Bricks. I was still, and then I was working for the firm, helping them to buy businesses, analyze businesses that were suitable for acquisition, look at ways we could creatively buy those businesses. And then basically after a while of doing that, they turned around and said, "Look, we know that you're ambitious. We know you want to do what we're doing. So why don't you buy Blue Bricks Magazine off us? And it can be like your first project, so to speak." And that's what happened. And the way that we bought Blue Bricks was through, I've never mentioned this public on a podcast because you guys like figures. I won't tell you how much I bought it for just because I don't know if the owners want people to know, the past owners, but we bought it through deferred consideration. What that basically means is you pay the business off over a set period of time. It was about 2 years. I ended up paying it off early, but we paid it back through the cash flow off the business that I just bought. So technically, if you wanted to be a knobhead, you'd say a no money down deal. Um, but we did that. But because of the deferred and the way that we paid the business off, there was a lot of debt within the business, which meant I had to come in and I had to do every single role other than the design, and it was still unprofitable. So it was about building it back from there.
So when you say you're doing everything, are you doing the interviews, the articles, all the editorial pieces, and then you're giving all that to someone to design the magazine layout? Is that was how it started?
I was back then. Now I've got a full-time marketer. I've got an editor. I've just replaced myself, so I do very little of the operations now. But back then, yeah, I'd go in, I'd interview people, I'd write the article. We didn't have ChatGPT 3 years ago, so you had to manually go through and make sure the commas were there and everything was spelled correctly. And then you'd send that to designer and then it'd go to print. So it was very hard to grow the business in the early stages because you had no time to actually spend on the business. It was very in the business.
When ChatGPT came out, did you go, "Oh, that's useful," or did it take you a while to adopt it?
It took me a little while to realize just how good it was, and then eventually it was doing the job of a proofreader, so it instantly saved us a lot of money every month, which was and now with ChatGPT, we're looking at other ways we can actually implement not just ChatGPT, but AI into the business so that we can interview someone and then it will automatically create a piece of content from the interview without us even manually having to do anything. So it's revolutionary what it can do. It can then create a podcast using your voice from the magazine we've just created. So it's absolutely insane what AI is doing at the moment. Yeah.
That is so good. And I suppose doing the interviews at the start and taking the magazine, the sort of passion that was there to drive this forward was you actually then surrounding yourself with other property developers, entrepreneurs, people who are doing different things in property that you could actually get some time with to learn from them as well. Are you still actually doing the property stuff, or are you still as passionate about learning the different strategies and what people are doing all over the country?
Yeah, I love property. I'll always love property. Blue Bricks has been an all-consuming project, and the best piece of advice I ever got was laser focus. Focus on one thing and do it very, very well. I tried doing multiple things alongside Blue Bricks, and it was really hard. Now I've got Blue Bricks to a point that it's more systemized, automated. It's got staff it's running without me. Now I'm sort of spreading my wings and looking at other things that we can do. But Blue Bricks is sort of my first love, and property is a big one after that.
So who's the best? Who's the best interviewer you've done, or who's the one that's sort of giving you the most inspiration, or the funniest story that you've done so far?
Well, we've just interviewed Dee and Ryan, so I feel like I'm under a bit of pressure.
You've done Dee and Ryan, have you?
Exclude us. Exclude us.
Yeah,
It's obviously me, so
Yeah, it's
easy to
probably
go on to
me.
the next
Probably
question.
me.
Neither do Stuart now, actually.
yeah. Then we've got the full lot. The best one I've done a couple. most inspirational was a guy called David Dowbus, Sheffield-based investor, built a multi-million pound property portfolio, and he was doing quite a few new build projects around there. He came to England with £300 to his name and didn't speak much English. And basically his story is he just grafted. He just worked overtime jobs, worked weekends. He was packing boxes, really arduous job, and just saved up as much money as he could to buy one buy-to-let, and then did the same again and bought a second buy-to-let, and then eventually sort of steamrolled it from there with private finance and stuff. But I loved his story because it was very raw. There was no bullshit or luck. It was just hard work and commitment.
I mean, you must have you'd have seen a lot of different stories then and heard a lot of anecdotes. Would you say there's common themes or common trend lines for what makes people successful in property as an investor or as a developer?
Yeah, it's weird 'cause when I first started interviewing for people at Bluebricks, you're like, wow, that's an amazing piece of advice. I'm going to write that down. And now, after 3 years of doing it, you do find that the advice from the top down is actually very, very similar. It actually becomes harder to write the articles if you've had the advice before. One of the biggest ones, which is quite an obvious one, have the right team around you. Um, Working with the right people that are capable, competent, that are going to work hard. That's a massive one. Systemization being another one. Valuing your time, working on your business or your property business or your portfolio rather than working within it. Can you use if you're doing a rental strategy, not so much build to sell, use a property manager to save your time rather than saving 10% of your rental income. That's a really big one. And I think the other one is the other piece of advice I got was TFD, just fuck. Oh no, JFD wasn't it? Just fucking do it. Um, which is basically just crack on and just do it. I think you see a lot of people that are stuck in complacency, waiting for the right time. I don't think the right time exists. I think you sort of create the right time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, mate.
I think it's great that I'd love to, that's the one thing I always say, and I've said it on this podcast several times, is people starting out, if they can just build their knowledge in the sector and build their network. And I think from you're at the coalface of meeting so many interesting people and learning so much from them. And obviously the viewers that we have and listeners we have on here, a lot of them are going to be either aspiring business owners, aspiring property investors, property developers. So I wanted to talk on two angles. One, your personal experience of delving into the business world, especially with a turnaround. I mean, you've just entered the game on difficult mode max. Do you know what I mean? There's there's one thing starting a business, and there's one thing as your first business doing a turnaround. I mean, that is that I wanted to talk about that, and for you to share the kind of top lessons you've had on there in the view of listeners thinking, not making that first move themselves yet, and then going into like your journey. How do you deal with, we've talked about this before, Sam, but how do you deal with the doubts? How do you deal with, the testing of the theory and all that stuff? So it's quite a broad question. So over to you.
Yeah, I think, mate, the turnaround is a hard one. I kind of got hit with a really unlucky stick of doing a business that's a mini turnaround. It's not the major level. A turnaround business is your first proper business in publishing, which is a dying industry, in the property industry, which all the landlords are starting to leave. Yeah, I've had a bad run of it, but my kind of joke to sort of Nathan, who's my now business partner, who is the owner of the private equity firm, he's now reinvested into the business. I was joking with him yesterday, actually saying, I'm gonna be like fucking Elon Musk by the time this is done, because if I can make this work, anything else is gonna be easy. So that was sort of tricky. That was really tricky. But I was lucky to be around people that wanted to support, people that wanted to help, aligning myself with the right people, and then understanding my customer is the biggest thing. Understanding what the reader wanted, understanding the demographic and the information that's actually going to help them. And and then what did you say the other one was about the doubt?
Yeah, because you, like I said, you entered the business world on difficult mode max. So that it's no doubt, as you've said, then hasn't probably gone to the plan you originally thought out when you first signed the deal. I bet you when you signed the deal, you was like, fucking hell, I'm gonna get this to this level within X months. And then obviously those X months come around and you're like, oh my God, I've actually gone backwards. What do you do with that in terms of the doubt and keeping motivated?
Yeah, I were gonna be a millionaire by now, mate.
It's all rainbows and unicorns, isn't it, at the start?
We all were. Don't worry, Sam. We all.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Blue Bricks has actually done fantastic. I mean, it is doing fantastically well. It's going brilliantly. It's a business. The brand's well known. We're profitable. Hiring staff. I couldn't be happier. And so many people have actually turned around to me. It's kind of bittersweet and gone, "You've done a lot better than this than we ever expected you would." And that's kind of a happy medium. So yeah, I mean, it's been brilliant to see it grow, and it does give me faith that if you can take that sort of max level difficulty and make something brilliant from it, that you sort of built for it. With the self-doubt stuff, I've had it recently, past couple of weeks, I've had it worse than I've had in a long time. It really hits you and it hits you hard of I'm happy with Blue Bricks and what I'm doing, but when you're interviewing such amazing people all the time and meeting such high level people, you've got that constant doubt of, am I like built for this? Am I good enough for this? Like these guys doing incredible. They're not even like, for example, you're a couple of years older than me. We talked about this. You're doing massive stuff in property. So I think that's the hard part is the imposter syndrome. And it comes in waves. There's days and weeks where I go, yeah, I'm doing incredible. I'm doing all right. Go down to my local pub, sort of see the people I grew up with that are still there doing lines off the toilet stalls. I think I'm not doing bad. And then you have your other weeks where you go,
When
shit,
was
there's
that,
some
Sam?
incredible people out there. Yeah.
Sam, there's definitely, we've all felt, and as Dee said, we've all felt those sort of similar things. But I just think the business model you took on is like, and you even admitted it, like you knew you were up against, not just up against competition, not just up against yourself and your own attributes and your own skill sets, the unknown things that may hurt you. Those are all standard things that business owners deal with. But you were up against, like, literally the world is changing in such a way that publishing is dying and that people don't want to buy magazines and things like that anymore. What gave you the nerve to think, I will make this work though, even in light of the world moving in a different direction? And what was the point? Why did you want to make it work? Why do you want to create this thing? Is it to create a culture? Is it to create an informative piece that you can leverage as a marketing platform? What was the sort of ethos behind it?
Yeah, it's changed. From the start, it's really changed. I'll be honest with you. I think at the start, I knew I wanted to go down this path, and I'd been given this opportunity, and I was like, I have to take this opportunity. I'm not going to get one like this again. Like this is sort of my way in. So I just took it. And I'd like to say there was some grand plan at the start. I really don't think there was. It was just try and get it to a stable level. I think as I've grown as a person, Blue Bricks has grown, and as Blue Bricks has grown, I've grown as a person. And now what it's about is ethics, integrity, and sort of being a voice in the industry that showcases honesty and the right people that are doing the right things. Because landlords, developers, we get a bad rep in the news all the time. It's always the evil property developer or the evil landlord. And I wanted Blue Bricks and the Blue Bricks Awards that we did to be a symbol of actually there's people in this industry that are doing really good stuff and really helping people. And then the community aspect came because I think we're in the information era. People value community now, being around people that can help them grow, that can, help them with the challenges. So we started doing the events. Most networking events are boring, unenjoyable. I thought, let's do something different. So that's why we did clay pigeon shooting days, we've done horse racing days. My theory is if people are laughing and having fun, they build actual relationships with each other as opposed to just throwing business cards at each other. And that's how the kind of community aspect came about. And I really feel that now, like when people go to my events, the feedback I get is I've never been to a place like this. Like I've never been somewhere so supportive with such a high caliber of people in the room. So it's all just sort of happens organically.
On the good and the bad there, I was just thinking about the what ifs and how do you sort of vet the people you interview and bring into the magazine? Because obviously there's loads going around at the moment with certain personalities that want to be the biggest in the country, and then they are pyramid scheming things and ripping people off and taking money for earn and learn schemes and stuff. Like, how do you think that looks on the brand if you were to interview someone and then they turn out to be a bit of a rogue? And how do you sort of, weather against the storm against that, really?
It's a constant worry, to be honest, mate. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about it and worry about it. It's become easier now because because the brand's really well known nationally, one of the most sort of well known publications in the UK for property investment. We're attracting a very high caliber of people, and the people that we're approaching and talking to have been in the industry sometimes 10, 20 years. They've got that positive track record. So that's the main thing to look for is a track record and a consistency. I stray away from influencers and people that are shouting and screaming online that don't have stuff to back it up, you sort of after a while build a bit of a bullshit detector that helps you detect it. Orange Lamborghinis are a big one. I'm joking. And so that helps. And then speaking to your network, speaking to people around you. If there's someone I don't know, haven't heard out certain of, I will ask around and go, do you know this person? Have they got a track record? Have they been in the industry long? Company's House tells you little bits of stuff, but not always a full story. Company's House is really hard for due diligence, especially in developments, because people ask for SPVs, which are set up and then dissolved all the time. So that's not always an indicator of good or bad. So I think it's just asking your network and watching people, watching what they're putting online, watching if they're consistent is a big one too.
And just on that, so with your magazine and with what's coming up, so obviously we do about 80 lofts a year, doing about £4.5 million, and obviously the guys that I work with, I constantly worry about making sure they've got work to fall onto. So if they're not building, we're not earning. And I suppose running a magazine, the worry for me would be having not enough articles in the pipeline. And like you obviously want to be content, you want to be relevant to the moment. A bit like this podcast, we try and do it a week in advance. So we're not 2-3 weeks out. So how do you sort of manage the amount of content you need? Are you sort of building up a bit of a pipeline, that stuff you can publish in 3, 4, 5 months time that you bring forward if you need extra content? I find it fascinating how you would have enough stories. I mean, there's endless stories to write about, but how do you use the content that's relevant today and still build a bit of a pipeline of content for the future?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I've got an abundance of content at the moment. Like we've got so much content for the rest of the year. People approach you all the time now because they know the brand and go, we want to be published, we want to be featured. So it's probably the issue now is too much content and knowing what to publish. In terms of the relevance, a lot of the stuff that we talk about is evergreen. We have some stuff, you might know Adam Lawrence, he's popular, he does like a market update in every issue, and that talks about the next 6 months to a year. So that's quite fresh. It's not like here's what the market's doing next week. But a lot of the content's evergreen 'cause it's people's stories, people advice for success, case studies of projects that they've done, stuff on dealing with tax as a property investor and structuring your portfolio correctly. It's all stuff that can be applied long term because you are right, Stuart, and that is something that I think about all the time. It's really hard in publishing to have your finger on the pulse because you might have a print error that will take you back by a week or two. And if you've got something hot in the market, like we've just talked about the Elon Musk, Donald Trump stuff, it's already old news by then. So that is a bit of a difficulty.
And what's the revenue models for the magazine? Like, where do you make money?
Yeah, subscription income is a big one. To be honest with you, with the rate that Royal Mail's been increasing its prices, which is an absolute killer for publishers, that just washes its face at the moment, really. We don't make much money off the subscriptions, if any. Advertising revenue is the bulk of the revenue. That's the bulk of your profits. We do really, really well on that. We've got event income as well, and income from events and event sponsorship. My goal on my job this year has been creating additional sources of income. So I'm currently building an app, which is going to be a separate business, which I'm plugging into Bluebricks, which will be another revenue stream. And then I'm also building another version of Bluebricks, another subscription, which is going to be another revenue stream. And then finally, I'm creating a second magazine at the moment with separate advertisers in that, which will be another source of income. So just constantly trying to build that out because the other challenge with publishing, I'll be entirely honest, very low order value. So you might get an advertiser for 500 quid, £1,000, whatever it might be. You need a lot of them to build a substantially sized business.
Do you only do subscription, or are you like in Waitrose and all the other sort of shops that you can advertise in, like the Tesco's and stuff, or are you just subscription only and then online to order?
Subscription only at a lot of property investment events and with high-end luxury hotels as well, a few of them around. Not in Waitrose or anything yet. I am going to look at that, but that's a whole different ball game as well. So I need to wrap my head around it.
I was going to say, because the amount, how do you know how many to print? I mean, if you're going to spend this much money and you're going to buy X amount of 1,000 copies and then you only sell half of them, that's obviously a constant risk. It's a bit like running a restaurant. I still don't understand how they know how much food they need to service for the next 3 or 4 days. I mean, it's once the magazine's expired, it's then just a cost to the business.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's the problem dealing with stock. I've always got a joke with people that I can pull a copy of Bluebricks out wherever I am because they're everywhere. They're in the office, they're in the home, they're in the car. So I've always got a copy of the back issues on there.
You're on I've seen some publications bolt on like a media service to their businesses, because once they're in with the kind of the contact slash the leads, obviously, like most businesses, the lead generation is sometimes the most difficult part. It's like kind of the bulk of the comes from advertisers. Is trying to get those leads of potential advertisers is probably the hardest bit of. And of course, getting high quality people to give the time to have an interview and stuff and make it interesting for readers to keep them coming back. So definitely, definitely challenging model. But in terms of what's the all the people you've interviewed, what would you say the common kind of trends or uh, traits they have that you seem that kind of makes them successful? Would you say?
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that because I was thinking about this yesterday. Yesterday, I met Danny Inman, who's on the front cover of the next issue. He's an incredible guy that's done some mad stuff. Um, and it sort of hit me then. I think the common denominator is people that have got a ridiculous amount of drive, but people that can go through a ridiculous amount of pain. I think every massively successful person I've met has probably turned around and said that the juice isn't worth the squeeze for the input they put in, the output, even though the output looks massive and it might be millions of pounds. When they look at the personal sacrifice, they said it's probably not worth it. So I think the massively successful people are the ones that are willing to go through the most pain and stay in the game the longest and to just crack on and do it rather than, you do see people that hover between course to course waiting to get motivation. And I think it's the people that jump in, do it, and sort of weather the storm.
Very good.
Yeah, fair point. And I don't know if you've covered much of these, but in terms of um, on the flip side, have you interviewed people or business owners that have or investors that have had failures, and what was the main reasons of that?
Yeah, we have had people that have had difficulties and problems. I think the main ones, obviously, bridging finance and projects overrunning, and then the finance sort of gradually killing them off. Um, the main ones we've seen go wrong is people that have partnered with the wrong people, the wrong joint venture partners that have used the wrong builders. Again, what I said earlier about getting the right team, I'd say the ones that have struggled the most are the ones that haven't had the right people around them.
That there is really valuable on both points in terms of the positive side of, the most common successful trait that you've seen is people that are willing to stay in the game and willing to keep the high pain threshold, and just it's grit. Basically, it's grit is the thing. And then on the flip side, the failures of, and they make sense. Finance killing them off, jobs going over, projects taking longer and costing more than expected, and partnering with the wrong people and having the wrong people around them. I mean, that sums up. So the question really for you on the flip side of that is, from your business too, and what you look to do in the future, what are the key lessons that you're going to take into your next venture or your other revenue streams you're trying to generate? How, what's the core thesis you're working to try to not make those mistakes yourself?
Yeah, I think for me, it's trying to add as much value to people as possible and build businesses that help people, that people want to use, that people love using, um, and always keep that honesty and integrity at heart. That's what's important to me personally. And I think to try and avoid those mistakes, try and always work with the right people. Um, this might be a controversial one, but hopefully it's helpful for people because I've been tearing my hair out about this. I've got a no bullshit rule with businesses that I work with now when it comes to, you have your freelancers, your one man bands, your contractors. I can't stand people that go, I don't work Friday, I finish at 3 o'clock, and every quarter I need a week off. I just won't work with those businesses now. I need to grow my business, and I can't do that if you're on borrow with your phone turned off. So it's, working with businesses that are actually going to help my business to grow and take that seriously. Um, and I think as well, grit and determination, it just reminds me that every business owner goes through a shit time. Every single property person I've ever interviewed has gone through a failed project. They've lost money. Something at somewhere at some point has gone wrong. That's just common fact. And I think it's taught me to just keep weathering the storm when those times come, because the ones that succeed are just the ones that keep going through it.
But you mentioned something there about when, in terms of just going into a venture, whether it's new business or the new revenue stream, is you're focused on what people want. And it just brought back a memory from a book I read, The Lean Startup, about basically testing models and only investing in infrastructure and scaling when you've proven people actually want, that you validated the business model. Yeah. So how do you how do you do that at Blue Bricks? How do you know that you mentioned it as well, like understand what the customer wants. You said it a few times, and also I guess your suppliers. How do you actually do that in practice?
Yeah, I think it's easy for me because I've been at all the events. We run our own events. I'm actually meeting my customers, my readers regularly. We do surveys a lot as well to understand what people are struggling with and what people want. So that helps. And with the new business, my business pass, which is an app, we've done a massive MVP on that, spent 300 quid on the branding, got the app up and running, started speaking to partners and running it at as minimal cost as we can to see if it works before we start going crazy, investing loads of money into it. So yeah, definitely take that following wherever I can.
What is the app? What's the plan with the app?
Yeah, the app, quick overview. You're familiar with Blue Light Card? Basically, Blue Light Card is, for anyone that's not familiar, emergency services, NHS, police, fire services have access to an app, and that app gives them discounts on all lifestyle stuff. So like River Island, Domino's Pizza, Halfords, anything you can think of as a discount on the app. And I've basically recreated that app, but I've done it for business owners. So as business owners on this app, you get discounts on your petrol, your diesel, your parking, get discounts with zero, curries, restaurants, hotels, anything you can think of. It's like a lifestyle and business app. Your accountant's fees, your marketing fees, solicitors' fees are all on there for you as a business owner to use. So that's the app that we've built, and we're going to plug that into Blue Bricks as well.
How do you get the discounts? Do they have to be like partners of yours, like, or how does it work?
Yes, we've got scale. So because we've got Blue Bricks and we've got that membership base in my network, I can go to companies like Zero, for example, and say, we've got this membership base. I want a discount, and they'll typically say yes. Or a lot of businesses offer a referral fee, so they might pay you 20% for referring someone over. And then it's a conversation saying, look, don't give me the 20%, just knock it off what the customer should be paying. Then you're not losing any money and the customer's getting a discount. So that's how we've managed to sort of reverse engineer it and do it.
And is that app free for your subscribers, or is it an additional bolt-on that you're trying to create, or is it how are you gonna?
Free for subscribe. Yeah, free for active subscribers when it launches. Then it's only going to be free for members of the premium subscription that we run, and then it's going to be sold as a separate product. We're looking at the pricing structure, but we're thinking £250 to £300 a year to get access to that. And I mean, even if you just use the fuel card on there, you'll save that.
Excellent. Sounds good.
It sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it'd be a decent one, and it's scalable. I mean, it's a bit like the Blue Bricks model, where like Blue Bricks is great no matter how many subscribers or advertisers you have. Your work is the same every single month to put the magazine together. Same with the app. It's a very scalable model because you don't have to do lots of work other than customer support to keep it growing.
Just on your readership, Sam, you've got 10,000 at the moment. Have you hit a ceiling? Is there a total addressable market of landlords and investors in the UK where you think it may start to plateau a readership, and you may need to diversify the copy and content to open up new markets? What's your thought process there?
Yeah, I think so. We, you do see sort of the hockey stick growth, and I think we're getting to a point because we're targeting more experienced investors. That's a much smaller market than saying we're going to go after the people that want to get into property, because the pool of people that want to get into property is forever growing every week with new courses coming out. So that's been challenging, but that's why what we're doing is we're relaunching new magazines into different markets now to get that content in front of more people.
But yeah, I mean that was the market really, where you've got millions of artists wanting to get into the inspiration of property, which is a great idea to have a different brand. I was going to ask how you go from like 10,000 people to 20,000 people. How do you sort of double the revenue? But if you could open up a bit more of a inspirational magazine and sort of take the best bits of Blue Bricks and apply that to a wider audience, then that would obviously be quite a big revenue generator.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is what we're doing basically.
You want to be offering some of these entrepreneurs to their own documented TV show and get them onto Netflix and stuff, and you can charge them a production fee because the people like Stuart love seeing themselves on TV.
I used to absolutely hate it, mate. 3 or 4 years ago, you'd never get me on a podcast doing this or talking to a camera. I just hated it. But then you do it for 50 hours and then it just becomes normal, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that because I was sat with Nathan yesterday, and I want to acquire businesses to help Blue Bricks grow. That's another plan of mine. I've got, obviously the backing there to do that. And I think my next stage will be to acquire another business to bolt on, which I'm thinking like a marketing agency because I was taught vertical integration. So always keep.
Before you do that, Sam, let's go around the room. Ryan, Stuart, myself. Let's give Sam some ideas of how he can scale his business. What would we do if we were Sam?
I was about to. I was gonna. If you were asked me that question without have hearing Sam's answer, I would say, yeah, having a solid marketing team and distribution is a way that you can then kind of take your platform and just steroid inject different products and service offerings, and you can test them initially and see if they work. It's basically what we've done in property, just a whole different sort of audience. Well, similar audience profile actually, but a whole different business model. So I think that's a really good idea. If that's your instinct, I'm a sales and marketing kind of guy. Like that's where I'd be going with it. And then there's the product offerings and other things you could tether onto that. That'd be my answer. Sales and marketing.
Similar. I just think that, yeah, casting the net and actually trying to build the brand as a bit of a personality that is out there, it's going the same thing, trying to find new people doing different people doing the same sort of concept. And then yeah, I would want people who like, we're about to move house, so we're now looking at different bathroom styles, we're looking at different kitchens, we're looking at the gardens and home, and that whole environment I think is more of a lifestyle. And I would try and tap into that market because that's huge. And that will literally inspire more people to become maybe SME builders and take on a smaller project and sort of see that it is possible. So I think, yeah, tapping into that sort of mass market would be what I would try and do.
And then my brain's been swirling around lots of things, just as it always does with every business. But the opportunities, it is just countless, isn't it? You can either, I know you talked about before, but in terms of you didn't pay for them or anything, but with the readership and the people, you could create some form of funnel from a book with all the lessons. Well, they've got the magazine, but that as a lead gen into some type of practical courses across different themes from the people that you've learned from, that people would pay for to get, specific advice on business scaling, or on, just these like online courses. That's also scalable. You could then also do a separate community as part of it, for like a membership community for people who are your readers that might want to pay for an additional community for more interactive studying around the themes of all, of what your magazine covers. A production type of arm for, as I said, when you're interviewing these people, what else can you do for them? Do they want to do something like showcase their business on a bit of a grander scale or even a smaller scale? The one thing I would say though as well is, um, don't forget about your personal brand. I would say Sam Ryan taught me this. Building the business brands are fine and great, and obviously needed for the business. But like most businesses, they're either going to end, they're going to be sold, you're going to pass them on to the team. The one thing that isn't until you die is your personal brand, and it's probably your biggest investment today, because it doesn't. The bigger you can get that, it doesn't matter what you turn your hand to. It's kind of, we didn't talk about it, but it's kind of like Hailey Bieber, who she sold her company for what was it, $1 billion recently, within 3 years, and it's 3 years because of her brand. Now, obviously, she got a mega brand, but even on a smaller scale, if your personal brand, which is more of an investment than a revenue stream, but you can get your personal brand to X tens of thousands of relevant followers, whatever you turn your hand to business wise in that sector, you will start off as a six-figure plus business, probably guaranteed. Am I wrong there, Ryan?
I think it's absolutely true, mate. Yeah, so many case studies of that being the case. Especially, I think where people get it wrong is they don't speak to the audience they've created. So obviously, Sam, you've created a property audience. I do think you should be leveraging your. Do you have a piece in each magazine from you?
We had the editors forward, but I've passed that on now, so I'm no longer the editor.
I think you should be featuring in each of your magazines so that you're tethering your personal brand to the magazine. So the magazine is Sam. The magazine Sam with Blue Bricks is Sam Cooke. They're synonymous. And then if anything happens in the future, you can kind of spin them out. The only thing you got to be careful of is obviously if you do want to sell it one day, you don't want to have that sort of key man issue. But I don't think you would, because you're not saying the magazine's about you. You're just saying you're in each piece, and you might cover a couple of the topics in that week, or you might have a different topic that you want to cover for that monthly or bi-monthly issue, isn't it? Just for the listeners.
You could also sell out 3 pages for a year or 18 months, and you could go out to SME builders, actually have a cover every month about what their journey. So they might have a really attractive site they're going to do in 6 months' time, and you could almost follow them through the planning cycle, the journey, the debt, the delivery, the refinance and have just a 2 page, because people would buy into that longer term as well. Because you could go, right, for 10 grand, I'm gonna do a piece on you every month, a bit like when we're doing the videos and the YouTube stuff. But you could basically have someone document the journey almost on a catch up weekly basis to sort of capture the emotion of it. What I really would love to have captured on some of our old sites is the frustrations with dealing with the planning. And at the time, you're in it and you're so heated and frustrated. But then sometimes 3, 4 weeks pass, that problem's been sorted. It was a stupid problem that's been to and from in on emails with evidence from the councils. And I think having a platform to go, you'll never guess this fucking email that's come through. It's ridiculous. And having a platform to shout it, I'd pay 10 grand immediately to have someone go, this is going out publishing, and you almost use it as a bit of an armory to go, you're being ridiculous. And yeah, basically lobby it. I would pay to have that over 6 months. If it's an interesting site and you're going through the emotions, and people would follow longer term because they want to hear next week's edition, a bit like watching a soap, right? It's like you're investing along the journey and you're seeing the outcome at the end.
It doesn't even have to come from one person. You could as like a campaign be like, right, if we get 50 developers across the country all paying £500 a month each for a lobbying type of thing about what's the key messages this 50 developers want to get out, which we do through a publication, and a really loud publication, then obviously some direct costs will come from that, but it should also make good profit. That's a good, decent, and then the messaging is not like when you go into a developer or builder, we want to do a piece about you and we want to a lot of people are like, I don't really want to be known like that. I don't really want to do that. I'm not really like that. But in terms of the frustrations and combining as a group, fucking that, what's 50 times? That's what's that, 25 grand's worth of monthly revenue there, just off the. Anyway, we're simplifying it, but these are just ideas, Sam. I know that's not why you joined the call, but this is what we do.
I've got one more idea for you though.
You get to enjoy running a magazine for an hour and just talk, just go off on different.
I will leave it to you to actually do the work.
Yeah, we ain't doing anything, but yeah.
One thing I would add though, which I think is not just for property, but seems to be playing out in a multitude of sectors. There's people like Johnny Harris, who you may have heard of, Peter Demandis. There's other people in different sectors who act more like journalists, and they're journalists for the space. So there's been some notable people who've made some big, well, not even mistakes, who have been fraudsters in the property space. I would be interested to see a documentary piece on those sort of things, like to really illuminate it for people and then use that as a marketing platform to promote Blue Bricks magazine, stay up to date with the latest news and how to avoid these pitfalls and things like that, and educate people through like deep, really good journalism on property specific cases.
I think that's a really interesting thing. I think the only thing to be careful of is libel. There's been a few times. Oh, it's not libel. I forgot what the term is, but there's been a few times I've had to back people. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, there's been a few times I've had to back my tongue with people that have come out that are just outwardly fraudulent, and somehow still have massive followings.
Guys, I've got to shoot. Sorry, someone's just come to me now. I didn't realize the time, but yeah, Sam, great to see you again. Ryan, Stu, always a pleasure. And Jack, if you're still tuned in behind the scenes, fuck you, Jack. I'm joking. All right, see you all later. Bye now.
But yeah, I mean, I think it'd be great to have. Doesn't seem to be someone in the space who like really goes in on, here's something bad that happened. It might not even be a fraudster. It might just be a site that went bust, and it could be one of the big boys. Or was it ISG? What was the name of that bloody we spoke about last year? That big contractor that went bust. It'd be great if someone could just collate all the issues and the kind of the chronology of the things that happened that created this, calamity for the construction sector. Massive, massive dent to the construction sector. But no one really did like a piece on it other than the media who just spun it up into some sort of narrative. But it'd be great to see, here was the chronology of events. Here's what happened. Here's me interviewing some of the people involved. Like I'd love to see, I think the property space needs a beacon like that. Someone who's a real journalist, actually looking out for investors' best interests and trying to educate people.
Yeah, I think you're right. And who doesn't have an agenda as well? So that's the problem with a lot of media, isn't it? Without going to conspiracy theory, there's always an agenda or something that's trying to be pushed. So I do agree with that.
That'd be very cool. Is there anything you wanted to ask us, mate? Because this is usually it's the other way around. Anything you wanted to ask us before we sign off this episode?
Yeah, it's been an interesting one. So obviously, I've spoken to you, D, Jack, individually. So I've covered a lot of that. I think the other thing, Stuart, is we need to get you in the magazine, and then we've done. I was thinking, I was thinking actually, maybe not the issue coming, but the issue after, of doing a full ground up feature and getting you all in it in one, which would be quite cool.
So yeah, that'd be really good.
Yeah, it'd be good, that, man. But no, thank you both for having me. I've really enjoyed it, and I might offend some other podcasts in saying this, but this is probably the podcast I've looked forward to the most out of all the ones I've done.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We're trying to do the best we can to offer as much free value each week as possible. And obviously, as aggressive entrepreneurs, we're trying to build it to be the biggest podcast in the space. Got to keep that competitive spirit alive. But importantly, we just want to make sure that each week we're giving useful dialogue. Like, I think the biggest disappointing thing for us would be to record an episode or release an episode that we feel is going to waste people's time. So we're trying to avoid that. Before we sign off, though, what can people do? Any listeners who want to go and subscribe to the magazine, get the magazine, follow yourself, give us some plugs, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you want to connect me directly, LinkedIn, Sam Cooke, Cook with an E. I'm not the soul singer. I'm the owner of Blue Bricks. I'm also in Instagram, SJCook03. And then Blue Bricks also has got Blue Bricks Magazine, Instagram. But the main thing is, if you go to bluebricksmagazine.com, we do a 3-month trial, so you can get a magazine ordered straight to your doorstep. And then you can also, every month, we do an online masterclass. The next one's on commercial property and how to start investing in it and the benefits of doing so, really high value stuff. And again, you can join that completely free of charge. If it's not for you, you can cancel. That's absolutely fine. If you stay subscribed, it's just £12.95 every other month, or £60 for the year if you go for the annual plan. So, not a lot of money at all.
Subscribing now. I just followed you on Instagram. Brilliant. It's a big soon.
Sam, a follow. Check out the magazine. It's a really good magazine. Like, this is like, if you're in the property space, you'll get glued on each page because everything's so relevant to investing, the property market, where we're at, people's stories and anecdotes. It's really good and it's really well edited. So well done to you and Vicky as well, I think, who's now your editor. So big love. Thank you everyone for listening. Make sure you subscribe, share this episode with anyone who you think may find it relevant, and we'll see you next week.
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate deals. We lay them down.